The series opens with Beth and Rip finally living the life they always wanted. After everything that happened in Yellowstone, they have escaped the endless conflicts surrounding the Dottun family and settled on a ranch west of Dillon, Montana. Together with Carter, they are trying to build a peaceful future. During a trip into the mountains, Beth and Rip spend the night camping beneath the trees. As they sit together beside a small fire, Beth wonders if Rip ever imagined they could have a life like this. Just the two of them, away from all the violence and responsibility. Rip tells her they are free now, and for a brief moment, it feels as though they have finally found happiness. Their peaceful evening is interrupted when a thunderstorm rolls across the mountains. A bolt of lightning strikes nearby and quickly starts a wildfire. Within minutes, the fire begins spreading across the land, threatening everything they own. Beth immediately rides back toward the ranch. She gathers Carter and starts collecting anything important she can save before the flames arrive. She grabs family photographs, important documents, keepsakes from her father, and other belongings. Together, they rush to free the horses and move them to safety before the fire reaches the property. While Beth focuses on saving the ranch's survivors, Rip notices a trapped calf surrounded by flames. Ignoring the danger, he rides directly into the burning area. Smoke and fire surround him as he struggles to reach the terrified animal. After a dangerous rescue, he manages to save the calf and escape. By the time he returns, much of the ranch has already been destroyed. Covered in ash and soot, Rip watches the place they called home disappear in the fire. After losing everything, the family decides to start over once again. They leave Montana behind and relocate to Texas, where they purchase the Edwards Ranch. Renaming it Dottun Ranch, they begin rebuilding their lives from the ground up. Not far away, another story unfolds at the neighboring 10-Petal Ranch. Before sunrise, two ranch hands named Rob Will and Chet wake up a cowboy named Wes. They claim there is an emergency involving livestock and convince him to come with them. Once they are alone, the truth comes out. Rob Will believes Wes reported him for stealing money and manipulating ranch accounts. Wes barely gets the chance to defend himself before Rob Will pulls out a gun and shoots him in the head. Afterward, Rob Will casually takes cocaine while he and Chet bury the body in secret. Later that day, Rip heads into town with a cowboy named Azul, whose family has deep roots in the area. At a gas station, they encounter Rob Will and Chet. Rob Will immediately begins insulting and harassing Azul. The situation escalates until Rip steps forward and punches Rob Will hard enough to send him reeling. Although Chet attempts to calm things down, Rob Will storms away in anger, leaving his partner behind. Back at Dottun Ranch, Beth tries to help Carter adjust to life in Texas. She encourages him to focus on school and become involved in local activities. Carter soon finds himself distracted by a girl in his English class. Hoping to impress her, he agrees to buy alcohol for her and her friends because he looks older than his age. Afterward, Carter notices a violent argument taking place in a parking lot. A man begins physically attacking a woman. Seeing the situation getting worse, Carter rushes over and intervenes. He brutally beats the attacker until police officers arrive and arrest him. Despite his good intentions, he ends up spending time in jail. The woman he protected, Oriana Jackson, later helps secure his release, creating an unexpected connection between them. Meanwhile, Beth focuses on business. She visits the 10-Petal Ranch to arrange the sale of several Angus cattle. There she meets Beulah Jackson, the powerful owner of the ranch and mother of Rob Will. Beulah runs her operation like a corporation and sees little value in handling Beth's small herd. Eventually she agrees, but only if she receives a share of Beth's profits. Beth sees the demand as little more than extortion and refuses. Their meeting ends without an agreement, establishing an immediate rivalry between the two women. Frustrated, Beth later stops at a local tavern. There she meets veterinarian Everett McKinney. During their conversation, Everett earns Beth's respect by standing up to an obnoxious cowboy in the bar. The encounter is brief, but memorable. On her drive home, Beth comes across a road closure caused by an accident. Nearby, she discovers a horse that has been badly injured and left suffering. Unable to ignore its pain, she decides to end its misery herself. However, when the moment comes, she hesitates. Before she can act, a veterinarian arrives. To her surprise, it is Everett. Beth convinces him to try saving the horse rather than euthanizing it. After a difficult procedure, Everett succeeds. The horse survives, giving Beth a new purpose as she begins helping the animal recover. As night falls, Beth and Rip relax together and reflect on everything that has happened since arriving in Texas. Beth admits she misses her father deeply and still struggles with the losses she has endured. Rip reassures her that they can build a life worth living in their new home. For the first time in a long while, they allow themselves to hope for a better future. The following morning begins quietly. Rip wakes early and heads out across the ranch. While riding through the property, he discovers disturbed ground. Investigating further, he uncovers a buried corpse. The body belongs to Wes, the cowboy murdered by Rob Will. Realizing a murder victim has been hidden on Dottun Ranch land, Rip understands that their fresh start in Texas may already be threatened. Next, we see a flashback to 8 days after the wildfire that destroyed Beth and Rip's Montana ranch. With their home gone and no desire to rebuild there, they begin searching for a fresh start. Rip learns about a ranch for sale in Texas through Walker, an old Yellowstone cowboy. The property belongs to Jeannie Edwards, whose husband recently passed away. When Beth and Rip arrive in Texas, Jeannie explains that powerful local ranching interests, particularly the Jackson family, have wanted to buy the Edwards Ranch for years. However, she refuses to sell to people who would exploit the land for profit. Having heard about John Dottun and his commitment to protecting ranching traditions, she believes Beth and Rip are the right people to inherit the property. Even though purchasing the ranch costs them nearly everything they own, Beth and Rip decide it is worth the risk. Thus, the Edwards Ranch becomes the new Dottun Ranch. Back in the present, Rip continues building his operation. He drives to a nearby prison and picks up Zachariah, a former cowboy who once worked alongside Azul's father. Fresh out of prison, Zachariah is immediately welcomed into the ranch crew and put to work. Rip sees him as a valuable addition and wastes no time integrating him into daily ranch life. Meanwhile, Beth continues searching for a solution to her cattle problem. Everett agrees to help her find a slaughterhouse willing to process her small herd after Beulah Jackson refused to offer a fair deal. During their drive, the two grow more comfortable around one another, sharing stories and getting to know each other better. Everett talks about his years in the Navy, while Beth enjoys the rare opportunity to spend time with someone who expects nothing from her. Eventually, they arrive at a small, independent butcher operation run by Claudio. Unlike the corporate-style facilities controlled by larger ranching interests, Claudio is happy to take Beth's business. The deal finally allows her to sell her 6 Angus cows and generate some much-needed income for the ranch. Elsewhere, the fallout from Wes's murder begins to intensify. Rob, Will, and Joaquin return to the place where Wes was buried, planning to recover the body. Instead, they discover the grave is empty. Unknown to them, Rip already found the corpse and removed it. The discovery sends shockwaves through the Jackson family. Beulah had hoped to quietly cover up the murder while sending Rob Will to rehab, allowing the family to move on without attracting attention. Now, with the body missing, the situation becomes far more dangerous. Furious, Beulah blames Joaquin for failing to secure the Edwards Ranch years earlier and for allowing problems to spiral out of control. Joaquin is then tasked with handling another problem. He visits Wes's widow, Whitney, offering financial support while attempting to keep her calm. However, Whitney immediately suspects something is wrong. The explanations surrounding her husband's disappearance make little sense to her, and she decides to report him missing to the police. Her visit to law enforcement proves disappointing. The officers show little interest in investigating the case, reinforcing her suspicion that the Jackson family has influence over local authorities. Fearing for her safety and her child's future, Whitney begins packing her belongings, preparing to leave town before she becomes a target herself. At the 10 Petal Ranch, Beulah promotes Chet to foreman, replacing Rob Will. The promotion comes with an unspoken understanding. Chet helped dispose of Wes's body and now shares responsibility for the crime. Their secrets bind them together. Not everyone at the ranch accepts the decision. Several cowboys continue asking questions about Wes's disappearance. One worker becomes particularly persistent, demanding answers from Chet. The confrontation turns violent, and Chet brutally beats the man until he stops asking questions, demonstrating how far he is willing to go to protect the secret. Meanwhile, Carter's relationship with Oriana continues to develop. After school, she picks him up and takes him out for beer and target shooting. The two enjoy each other's company and clearly feel attracted to one another. However, Carter soon discovers there are complications. Oriana already has a boyfriend, and even more concerning, she is Rob Will's daughter. Without realizing it, Carter has become involved with the daughter of one of the most dangerous men in the area. At the Jackson family home, Oriana learns that her father will soon enter rehab. During dinner, Beulah pressures her granddaughter to meet the family's expectations and hints that she could someday play an important role in the future of the ranch. The conversation creates tension, revealing the enormous pressure Oriana faces from her family. Back at Dottun Ranch, Rip and Carter spend time together discussing Carter's growing feelings for Oriana. Acting more like a father than a ranch boss, Rip advises him to pay attention to what a woman says, whether her words are kind or harsh. The advice reflects Rip's own relationship with Beth and shows how much Carter has become part of their family. Later, Beth invites Rip to join her and Everett at a local bar. The evening is surprisingly peaceful as the three share drinks and conversation. Everett continues proving himself to be a trustworthy friend. At one point, he even takes the stage to perform music, giving Beth and Rip a brief escape from the problems surrounding them. As night falls, Rip quietly leaves the ranch alone. He transports Wes's body to a nearby minefield. There he disposes of the corpse, ensuring it will be difficult for anyone to ever find. Rip returns home before dawn and quietly makes coffee in the kitchen. Beth notices he disappeared during the night and questions him, but Rip keeps the truth to himself. Wanting to preserve the peaceful life Beth has been trying to build, he chooses not to burden her with problems he believes might still be avoidable. With the ranch operating with a much smaller crew than the old Yellowstone, Beth spends part of her day working alongside the cowboys. After finishing ranch duties, she heads to Dallas in search of new business opportunities. She stops at a local butcher shop, where Claudio supplies her with fresh cuts of beef, and warns her that large corporations are steadily swallowing up smaller ranches throughout Texas. In Dallas, Beth attends a meeting at an upscale hotel restaurant. There she observes hospitality executive Giles Moore dismissing concerns raised by Chef Paula about unfair tip distributions. Seeing an opportunity, Beth persuades Paula to prepare one of her ranch's steaks for Giles. The strategy works, and the meal becomes Beth's introduction. Giles is impressed after learning she owns the former Edwards Ranch, but he explains that a powerful supplier known as Frontier Hospitality Group dominates the luxury restaurant market, making Beth's ranch-to-table ambitions difficult to achieve. While dining afterward, Beth is unexpectedly joined by Joaquin. Their conversation reveals more about his background, including his adoption into the Jackson family. Beth notes that he reminds her of Jamie, her adopted brother from the past, creating an uncomfortable connection between them. Elsewhere, Beulah attends the funeral of a respected sheriff and reconnects with Everett. Their interaction suggests a long and complicated history. At the same time, Sheriff Wade continues investigating the disappearance of Wes and his wife, asking Beulah questions while seemingly giving her considerable freedom to operate. Carter, meanwhile, skips school to spend time with Oriana. She tells him her boyfriend Hoyt has been cheating on her, evidence she discovered by secretly tracking him. The pair track Hoyt down at another woman's house. Carter takes revenge by urinating on Hoyt's truck, while Oriana escalates the situation by smashing its windows. Hoyt rushes outside waving a gun, forcing them to flee. Soon afterward, Sheriff Wade pulls Carter over, but surprisingly lets him off with only a warning. Later that evening, Carter and Oriana finally begin a romantic relationship. Back on the ranch, Rip, Zachariah, and Azul discover a sick cow among the herd. Everett examines the animal and fears it may have foot and mouth disease, a highly contagious illness capable of devastating livestock. Suspicion quickly falls on the prize bull Beth and Rip recently acquired at auction. The possibility of an outbreak threatens the ranch's entire future. Another dramatic incident unfolds when Anna Dupree arrives armed with a gun and confronts Zachariah. Rip calms the situation before violence erupts. It is revealed that years earlier Zachariah accidentally killed Anna's daughter, his former wife Terry Jane, in a drunk driving accident. The painful encounter exposes a tragic chapter from Zachariah's past. Beulah continues managing the fallout from Wes's disappearance. She visits Austin in the hospital to smooth over tensions surrounding recent events, and later receives a concerning phone call from a man named Mariano, who warns her to make sure there are no surprises involving an upcoming cattle shipment. Realizing loose ends remain, Beulah heads to Whitney's house intending to deal with her directly, only to discover that Whitney has already left town. As the day comes to an end, Beth returns from Dallas and finds Rip out in the field. He finally shares the devastating news. Tests confirm that the disease has spread through their cattle herd. The outbreak threatens to destroy the ranch's primary source of income. Rip, Beth, and the ranch hands gather to look over the herd and confirm their worst fears. The bull they purchased at auction brought foot and mouth disease onto the property, and the infection has spread through the cattle. The discovery leaves everyone facing a devastating financial disaster. Inside the house, Carter and Oriana enjoy their first morning together after spending the night at the ranch. Their quiet moment is interrupted when Beth walks in. Although she doesn't react as harshly as either of them expects, she insists that Carter should be in school. Oriana pushes back, arguing that Carter is old enough to make his own choices. Beth lets the comment slide, but later drives Oriana back to the 10-Petal Ranch, making it very clear that anyone who hurts Carter will have to answer to her. Back at home, Oriana faces consequences from Beulah. Concerned about her granddaughter's growing independence, Beulah assigns a ranch hand to act as Oriana's personal bodyguard, greatly limiting her freedom and ensuring she will be closely watched from now on. Rather than return to school, Carter searches for work. He eventually meets Dwight, a weathered cowboy who hires him for a day of hard labor on his property. Carter spends the day hauling supplies and helping around the farm. As evening approaches, Dwight shares food, drinks, and stories with him, even introducing Carter to his unusual pet leopard, Xena. Impressed by Carter's work ethic, Dwight pays him for his efforts before sending him home. Carter plans to meet Oriana later that night after Beth encourages him to enjoy himself, but Oriana's new bodyguard prevents her from leaving the ranch, ruining their plans. Meanwhile, Everett receives a request to help with what he believes is an emergency horse delivery at the 10-Petal Ranch. When he arrives, he discovers there is no emergency at all. Beulah simply wanted an excuse to spend time with him. The two share drinks and discuss old wounds, including Everett's lingering grief over the death of his son, Levi. Their conversation reveals how close they once were and how tragedy eventually pushed them apart. Although old feelings resurface between them, Everett ultimately decides to leave before their reunion becomes something more. After he leaves, Beulah struggles with loneliness and the pressure of running the ranch. Later that evening, she confides in Joaquin, admitting how exhausted she feels carrying so much responsibility. Joaquin offers to take control of ranch operations, but Beulah refuses, seemingly determined to preserve the ranch for Oriana's future. At the Dottun Ranch, the crisis reaches its most heartbreaking stage. With no cure available and the disease spreading rapidly, Rip, Beth, Zachariah, and Azul prepare for the grim task of destroying the infected herd. One by one, the cattle are put down to prevent further contamination. The experience devastates everyone involved, especially considering the herd represented the ranch's primary source of income and future stability. Determined to find out who is responsible, Beth investigates the bull's history and uncovers evidence that its health records were forged. She and Rip track down the livestock broker who sold them the animal. Rip violently confronts the man, demanding answers. After warning him never to return, Rip sets fire to the broker's trailer, and the couple walk away as it erupts in flames. Later, Carter realizes Beth intentionally pushed him toward a night out so he would not have to witness the destruction of the herd. While Beth viewed it as protecting him from trauma, Carter feels hurt that she kept him in the dark. Their conversation forces Beth to recognize that her attempts to care for him sometimes come across as controlling rather than protective. As night falls, Rip contacts Everett to confirm that every infected animal has been destroyed. Beth quietly pours herself another drink while both of them face the reality of what they've lost. With the Dottun ranch left without a cattle herd, Beth and Rip struggle to see a path forward. Their future appears uncertain until Everett offers Rip a potential opportunity. Knowing that the 10-Petal Ranch needs an experienced foreman, Everett arranges a meeting between Rip and Beulah Jackson. Rip travels to the 10-Petal and meets with Beulah. After a brief but direct conversation, she decides to hire him. However, she doesn't inform her current foreman, Chet, beforehand. Chet is furious when Rip arrives and immediately begins taking charge of ranch operations. Throughout the day, Rip evaluates the ranch hands, learning who can be trusted and who cannot. By the end of his first day, he concludes that Chet is a liability and fires him. The dismissal humiliates Chet, who reacts with anger. Searching for support, Chet turns to Joaquin, hoping he will intervene. Instead, Joaquin offers no help and makes it clear that Rip's position is secure. Later that evening, Rip informs Beulah that Chet has been let go. She accepts the decision without hesitation and finalizes Rip's employment arrangement. Chet leaves the ranch, carrying dangerous knowledge and a growing grudge. Although Joaquin warns him not to cause trouble, Chet appears unwilling to listen. Matters become even more concerning when Rob Will returns and meets with him, suggesting that larger problems may be forming behind the scenes. At home, Beth struggles with the reality that Rip is now working for someone else. She knows owning and running their own ranch was his dream, and seeing him return to a hired position troubles her. Refusing to accept defeat, Beth spends her time searching for another way forward. Eventually, she decides the answer may lie with Beulah herself. After Rip leaves work one evening, Beth visits the 10-Petal Ranch and asks to speak privately with Beulah. The two powerful women quickly recognize similar qualities in each other. Beth proposes helping modernize and expand the ranch's business operations. She believes she can increase profits while creating opportunities for both of them. Though she refuses to exploit the Dottun family name, the meeting ends with an apparent agreement between them. The arrangement has consequences. Joaquin recently sought a larger role within the ranch, and Beth's arrival threatens to reduce his influence. His disappointment is obvious, creating new tension within the ranch leadership. Meanwhile, Carter remains upset with Beth and continues avoiding school. Instead, he keeps working alongside Dwight, enjoying the freedom and practical work. Dwight's relaxed outlook and unconventional lifestyle make the farm an appealing escape. Carter eventually invites Oriana to visit. She enjoys seeing his world, though her bodyguard Miguel quickly shuts down the visit and escorts her away. Not long afterward, police officers suddenly arrive at Dwight's property to conduct a raid. Realizing trouble has arrived, Dwight rushes to protect his beloved leopard, Xena. Chaos erupts during the operation. By the time Carter reaches the scene, Dwight has been shot and is bleeding heavily. The sheriff is revealed to be the one who pulled the trigger. Later, Carter is brought to the station. The sheriff attempts to justify Dwight's death by portraying him as a criminal, but Carter remains unconvinced. Faced with threats of legal consequences and pressure from law enforcement, Carter reluctantly agrees to stay silent about what happened. In exchange, the sheriff promises to leave Carter out of the investigation. Although Carter is allowed to leave, the experience leaves him deeply shaken. When Oriana finally finds him, he is emotionally devastated by Dwight's death and the events he witnessed. Meanwhile, Rip continues settling into his role as the new boss at the 10-Petal. To strengthen his position, he brings in Azul and Zechariah, two men he trusts. Although Azul has doubts about leaving his old life behind, he accepts for the sake of his family. Zechariah stays with the ranch hands to quietly observe the crew and keep Rip informed about anything unusual. The ranch receives a new herd, giving everyone plenty of work. The cattle are unloaded, tagged, branded, and the sick animals treated. Rip places Azul in charge of helping organize the work, and the job runs smoothly. Even so, tension remains between Rip's crew and the longtime 10-petal ranch hands. Zechariah eases into the group through friendly exchanges, helping reduce some of the friction. After work, the original ranch hands challenge Rip's team to a series of contests. Remembering how similar competitions united the Yellowstone bunkhouse, Rip agrees. The friendly rivalry helps both groups relax and begin accepting one another, bringing the ranch a step closer to becoming a united team. Elsewhere, Beth travels with Beulah to meet potential buyers interested in the 10-petal. Beth carefully prepares every detail of the presentation, despite Beulah questioning her strategy. During the meeting, Beth confidently answers difficult questions about the Dottun family before smoothly shifting the discussion toward the Jackson family's legacy. Together, they impress the buyers and successfully secure the deal. While celebrating afterward, Beulah begins asking personal questions about Beth's past, including her relationship with her father and Jamie. Beth avoids revealing anything, but Beulah's curiosity suggests she intends to uncover those secrets later. At the same time, Rob, Will, and Chet spend the day drinking after being pushed aside at the ranch. They also buy several firearms, making the situation even more dangerous. Later, Chet arrives at the 10-petal intoxicated and confronts Joaquin. He shoots Joaquin in the hand before Miguel intervenes and kills Chet with a shot to the head. Rip soon arrives, helps the wounded Joaquin, and questions him about the body found on the ranch and Rob Will's involvement. Joaquin explains everything, leaving Rip convinced Rob Will must never return to the 10-petal, though the threat is far from over. Next, we see a flashback to 1981, revealing a younger Beulah living at the 10-petal ranch. Mariano, who is caring for his infant son Joaquin, watches over her as well. During a party, Beulah is charmed by a man named Luke, who secretly lures her away. Mariano later finds her distressed after Luke has taken advantage of her. Embarrassed and devastated, Beulah begs Mariano not to tell anyone. The episode returns to the same period near its end. A pregnant Beulah asks Mariano to take her to Luke, claiming she wants to tell him about the baby. Instead, she confronts Luke with a gun and shoots him dead, while Mariano helplessly witnesses the killing. The flashback hints that this tragedy may explain why Mariano later disappeared and why Joaquin was left in Beulah's care. In the present, Beth, Rip, and Carter attend the lavish 190th anniversary celebration of the 10-petal ranch. Carter hopes to repair his relationship with Oriana after confessing his feelings, but she dismisses him and spends the evening with another man. Hurt and humiliated, Carter turns to alcohol. Everett and the sheriff both notice Carter's growing anger and try to calm him, but neither succeeds. After another painful encounter with Oriana, Carter loses control, tears a mounted hunting trophy from the wall, and storms outside carrying it. Rip rushes to stop him. Before the celebration, Beulah had planned to announce the future leadership of the ranch after completing an important business deal. Joaquin expects to be named her successor because of his loyalty and hard work. However, Rob Will unexpectedly returns from rehab and openly threatens to remove anyone standing between him and ownership of the ranch, including Joaquin. When Beulah finally addresses the guests, everyone expects Joaquin to inherit the 10-petal. Instead, she shocks the crowd by naming Rob Will as her successor. Beth and Rip are stunned, while Joaquin feels completely betrayed. He walks away from the ranch, unwilling to remain in Rob Will's shadow. Rob Will mocks his departure and admits that Chet's recent attack on Joaquin had been carried out on his orders. However, just as he speaks, Beulah grabs her neck and collapses on the floor. She is rushed to the hospital by air ambulance, with Rob Will accompanying her while Beth and Oriana can only watch. Beulah survives, and Everett later calls Joaquin to the hospital so both he and Rob Will can meet with her. Still angry over being passed over as successor, Joaquin is reluctant to listen. Beulah urges him and Rob Will to put aside their rivalry and work together for the future of the ranch. She also reminds Rob Will to control his arrogance and insists they will need Beth and Rip's help. Although both men agree, neither truly accepts the arrangement. Refusing to let the matter rest, Joaquin attempts to connect Rob Will to Wes's disappearance by taking a weapon to the sheriff. Without a body or enough evidence, the investigation goes nowhere. Before leaving, Joaquin contacts his father, believing he may hold the key to the hidden side of the Ten Petals business. Exhausted by years of responsibility, Beulah decides to forget the ranch for a while. She and Everett quietly leave the hospital and spend the day together at his home, finally allowing themselves to enjoy the relationship they have long avoided. After the disastrous party, Carter rides home with Rip, ashamed and still drunk. The following morning, he admits to Beth that he has quit school because he wants to become a cowboy. Beth sends him to work with Rip, but the day quickly falls apart. Carter forgets his gloves, struggles with simple tasks, and is thrown from his horse while trying to rope escaping cattle. Frustrated by his failures and still haunted by Oriana's rejection and the violence he has witnessed, he lashes out at Rip before riding away. Back home, Carter completely breaks down. Despite Beth's attempts to comfort him, he leaves and unsuccessfully offers to work for the sheriff, leaving his future uncertain. Meanwhile, Rip's plan to uncover the ranch's secrets begins paying off. Zechariah earns Austin's trust and brings him to meet Rip and Beth. Austin finally reveals the truth about an illegal cattle smuggling operation connected to the Ten Petal in Mexico. The scheme kept the ranch alive, led to Wes's death, and was also responsible for the loss of Beth and Rip's herd. With the truth finally exposed, Rip and Beth begin planning their next move. Next day, a new shipment of cattle reaches Ten Petal Ranch. Rip, Beth, and a few loyal cowboys unload the animals until Rob Will arrives and orders them off the property. After Rob Will insults Beth, Rip knocks him to the ground and beats him. Beth discovers his tally book, which identifies several steers marked for a supposed doctor on arrival. Although Rob Will refuses to explain the code, Rip keeps the marked cattle and sends them to Dottun Ranch for inspection. Before leaving, he tells Austin to disappear for his own safety. Rob Will immediately warns Beulah that Rip and Beth have seized the shipment. Everett examines the cattle and eventually cuts open one with fresh stitches, uncovering packets of fentanyl hidden inside. The 7 marked steers contain millions of dollars worth of drugs. Rip realizes whoever owns the shipment will come looking for it, but Zach and Azul refuse to leave his side despite the danger. Beulah returns from the hospital and finally tells Everett the truth. Years earlier, Mariano helped her cover up the murder of the man who assaulted her. But after being forced to flee to Mexico, he built a criminal empire. During the devastating 2010 drought, Beulah accepted Mariano's offer to use her ranch to smuggle drugs hidden inside cattle. Over time, the arrangement trapped her financially, leaving her dependent on him. Everett is devastated by the deception and asks her to leave. Mariano arrives in Texas after Joaquin secretly calls him. He meets Beulah and demands she remove Rip and Beth from her ranch and publicly name Joaquin as her successor. Afterward, Beulah warns Rob Will to stay out of the conflict, but he ignores her and secretly tells Mariano that Rip and Beth have already taken the drug-filled cattle. Trying to prevent bloodshed, Beulah goes to Dottun Ranch and admits everything to Rip and Beth. They return the recovered drugs, hoping to avoid further violence, but Mariano has already sent armed men after them. With Azul spotting the attackers on security cameras, Rip, Everett, Zach, and the others ambush the gunmen and kill nearly all of them, leaving one survivor for questioning before disposing of the bodies. Meanwhile, Mariano decides Rob Will has become a liability and orders Joaquin to prove himself. That night, Joaquin enters the Jackson home and shoots Rob Will in the head, eliminating his own brother and clearing the path to claim the ranch. Beth returns to the Dottun Ranch and helps clean up. She hasn't found Carter, but Everett tries to provide some comfort. That comfort doesn't last. She gets a call from Mariano. He has Carter, and he has a score to settle. Beth tells Rip as both of them prepare for the war that's coming.